Hi everyone, welcome back to Texting Matters TV. Today we are covering the blue view. As you can see if you're watching from YouTube, we are covering the blue view or the blue perspective. But I think I like blue view better, right? Red view, blue view. Welcome back. Okay, so today we are talking side hustle featuring SARS or tax, right? And if you think back to old school days when collaborations were huge, right? This is a collaboration that you have in your life, whether you know it or not, right? So rather bring on SARS officially rather than being shocked that they're there, right? Because they are there. Whether you see them or not, whether you acknowledge them or not, SARS is there, attached to your side hustle, to your dream, to your goal, whatever it is. Chances are you want to make money from your goal, unless you're trying to start a non-profit, right? And you're being philanthropic. That's great. You're not part of the conversation. But in this January, I'm in January as I'm filming this, right? And probably posting it in January as well. Side hustles or side businesses or anything that is a goal for you, you've probably set it, you're probably pursuing it, and whether or not you are making 100 Rand or 100,000 Rand, you need to tell SARS about it. So SARS wants to know your business. So my nugget, my blue nugget for the day is feature SARS before SARS features you. That is so lame. Oh my gosh. Okay. Anyway, we'll be talking about tax considerations that you need to think about, take into consideration before or as you start your side hustle, right? So the nugget is do it as you start, right? I want to liken SARS to a shadow, to your shadow, right? Everyone has a shadow. I have a shadow, right? I might not be able to see my shadow currently, but I have a shadow. Everyone has a shadow. So much so that it would be very weird if someone didn't have a shadow, right? A living person has a shadow. And every goal, every dream has a shadow. Out of sight does not mean or should not mean out of mind, right? Whether you see SARS or not, or see a representative of SARS or not, doesn't mean that you forget that SARS is attached to your goal or to your dream. Just like if you are sitting under a tree, you don't know that you don't think about your shadow. In fact, maybe you can write down in the comments, how often do you think about your shadow? I don't think about my shadow much at all, ever anyway, right? And even when I see it, I don't give it much thought. How many people remember and think about their shadows and really consider their shadows, right? But it's certain, your shadow's there with you. Whether you're sitting in the shade or you're in the sun, it's there. It's just you being able to see it or not see it, right? And not to shade shadows, they don't feel very important. But I'm here to tell you that SARS is important enough for your mental well-being, your financial well-being, and your legal well-being, right? And when, let's say, you starting your business is the equivalent of you stepping out of the shadows and going into the sunlight. Suddenly, SARS appears. Ta-da! SARS is there, right? And they're like, oh, good to know. The truth is, SARS doesn't know everyone. And it is true that in the past that your likelihood of getting by without SARS noticing you was very high. Because realistically speaking, how many people are there in SA, right? And how many people have side hustles, right? More especially as we're going to get into this episode, you'll realize that it's not everyone who has a business that registers their business. Legally so, by the way, right? So you might go your whole life without SARS, even knowing that you make money, while you used to be able to do that with a higher probability. But in the AI world that we are now in, that probability reduces every single second significantly. SARS has been working hard at improving their ability to collect tax, as we mentioned in our introductory video. So it is to your benefit to make sure that you comply. It's to your benefit to have your house in order. And that's where my blue nugget is residing, right? In your house that has order, right? Meaning you're exercising certain disciplines as you're even thinking about that dream, that goal. Feature SARS, insert SARS. I want to make an analogy of a birthday party or celebration, right? Let's say it's a big birthday for you this year, and already you have the intention to do something for your birthday, right? And I want to make an example specifically around deco. We all want that deco, like that deco that's giving Instagram, that's giving. I spent a lot of money on this without actually spending money on it. Let's be honest. How many people actually want to pay the money, right? For the deco. We want the party, we want the aesthetic, but a lot of people try to get out of actually paying that money, which is diabolical, I must say, right? Anyway, like, service providers or people who run businesses like that, catering and photographers, they can share their frustrations with the common person who has a wish list for days, but when it comes to actually paying, they are very stingy, right? So we need to change that. Anyway, I'm not trying to lecture you on your manners, but what I'm trying to say is we want something, but we are not willing to pay for it. Most of the time, I'm talking to human nature. I'm not accusing anyone, right? I've also wanted nice deco with a group of people for a certain event, and when we realized how much that deco would cost us, we reverted to alternative plans. And we then went and sourced balloons, garlands from China City or China Mall. And we were like, okay, we got this. Balloons are not too expensive. Then you go to a party shop to fill those balloons with helium, and then you get a shocker that helium is really expensive. And then you're like, wait. The Lord gave me breath in my lungs. I shall use what the Lord has given me. We can do this, right? And we did that. We filled those balloons up with our God-given breath. And we had deco. But it was not giving Instagram. You know what I mean? So there is a price you pay for not wanting to pay. And in our cause and effect analysis that we'll probably only get to in part 2 or 3 of this conversation, we see an example of that. We see someone who admittedly says they owed SARS much less than what SARS says they owe them. But for me, I'm just like looking at this amount. Maybe you can guess who it is. But he was like, no, actually, I only owe SARS 8 million rand. And I'm just like, who even has 8 million rand, right? Why are you even owing Soros 8 million rand, right? And now this sequestration going on, like cash flow has to be created, right? This is where I'm trying to tip you. The blue nuggets is for us to not get there. Granted, many of us might not get to a point where we can comfortably just say, I owe Soros 8 million rand, because for you to owe Soros 8 million rand, it might just mean that you've made so much money, right? So not everyone in their lifetime might get to that point. Maybe a lot of us might, I don't know, but I'm not trying to water down your dreams of becoming a millionaire if that's your thing. But what I'm trying to say is you might not deal with SARS at that magnitude, but whose heart does this whenever they get correspondence from SARS? And then that correspondence has an A word, right? But audit, the word audit it gives people palpitations, right? Because now it's like magnifying glass. SARS sees you. SARS is looking at you. That is terrifying for anyone, right? Even if it's not an 8 million rand issue, but as long as SARS is looking at you, your heart is going to do this. And like I said, with AI and all these different ways that SARS is improving their ability to be able to pick up on non-compliances, you don't want to find yourself in a situation where SARS sees you and then sees something that you don't want SARS to see. So my piece of nugget, or my nugget, is to say, build up a discipline of putting money aside. If your hustle is giving you 100 rand a month, let's say, right? Take 10% of that 100 rand, put it aside. Don't ask me why 10%. 10% is just a nice number, I suppose. Put that money aside, that discipline, create it, develop it, right? Put 10% away. It might feel like you need that money right now, but develop, cultivate that discipline for yourself. That's my nugget. Because you'll then say to Soros, I made 100 rand. You have to declare, I made 100 rand. If ever you don't end up having to pay Soros anything because there is a threshold, we'll have another episode where we will discuss that threshold to say, it's communicated to us, right? There's a threshold to say, once you start earning above a certain amount, that's when you'll basically owe SARS money. But if you're making money below that threshold, which should also guide a lot of things, everything tends to be quite logical, right? But if you're making below a certain threshold, then you don't owe SARS anything. And if you've cultivated the discipline of putting 10% away, by the time you declare and discover that actually I don't owe SARS anything, you have savings in your account that you can either keep there, which I would advise that you keep there for when you perhaps end up owing SARS a lot more money. The nice thing is you can earn interest. I think interest is taxable, but you can earn interest, but there also is a deduction and an exemption for interest. But what I'm trying to say is you can keep that money there, earn interest. That money grows, the interest becomes something that you can potentially do something with, right? And that money, you no longer owe SARS because you would have declared 100, while the capital that's in there, you no longer need to declare to SARS. And that becomes money that you can use for your business, for yourself, however, right? And registered or not. And for me, that is best practice so that you don't find yourself having a conversation with SARS down the line and you owe them 8 million rand. Because you might think, no, I don't make that much money. Oh, SARS is focusing on the guys, the big guys, they're trying to catch the big fish, right? And you're just a drop in the ocean, right? But they could still come after you, right? But anyway, I digress. I'm just trying to say that should you then make a mistake, right? Source comes back and says, look, you've been making this mistake for the past 5 years, or you haven't been declaring this particular thing for the past 5 years, and you were supposed to. And then Sora says, okay, in year 1, you should have owed me this, but because you didn't declare, you didn't do all these things, I'm adding interest, I'm adding this, I'm adding that. And you can find yourself owing Sora's a ridiculous amount of money that you don't make and you just don't have. So, hence my nugget. You see, I'm trying to look out for us, right? So, peace of mind, peace of heart. The A word might make you do this, but you know you're good. You're living in a house that has order. You have your house in order. And that's where this nugget resides. So I think for now, I'll cut the conversation there. We'll move on to part 2 of this conversation, where we'll basically be looking at the different considerations you should have when you're starting something, right? And just what you should know in terms of how source sees you and what the implications are. And then I think we'll dive into the example of our friend that I mentioned earlier in our cause and effect analysis, where we basically look at what this person says versus what source has to say. And yeah, it should be an interesting read. So I think if you just follow these tips, as uncomfortable as it is, but if you follow these tips, you won't find yourself in a position like that, whether you're earning 100 Rand a month or 100,000 Rand a month, because a discipline is a discipline. And if you work on it and perfect it when you have little, chances are you'll do great and you won't find yourself in compromising situations, and you make peace with the fact that source is like your shadow, while as certain as your shadow, always there, attached to your dream. So that is it for me for now. Take care.